You're welcome to another video of Juniper Security Associate course. In this section, I'll talk about Juniper SRX Active Directory integration, which is a prerequisite for implementing identity-based firewall or user-based access control, which will be discussed in the next section. With integrating SRX with Active Directory, it can retrieve user information and updated IP address of each user with the help of event log from Active Directory. As I mentioned in the introduction, this section is dedicated to integrating SRX device with Active Directory. With integrating SRX device with Active Directory, not only pull user and group information from Active Directory into the SRX device, but also get updated information regarding the IP address of each user. Whenever user logs in or out of the Active Directory, a log event is generated into Windows event log database. SRX reads this information to update itself regarding the IP address of each user. The configuration of integrating SRX into Active Directory has two steps. In the first step, we have to connect SRX with Active Directory, which is displayed in the first lines, with giving the IP address of a domain controller and LDAP server, which is the same for me, and also username and password to connect to the Active Directory. And in the second step, we configure an access profile to the LDAP server to get the user and group information which is necessary to implement user-based access control. In access profile, we configure authentication method, which is LDAP, the IP address of LDAP server, username and password to query the information, and a base distinguished name to query this information. I configure the administrator user for both integrating SRX with Active Directory and query the information. Let's copy the configuration into SRX, copy and then paste and then commit. Before monitoring and testing, you should know that I've already installed Active Directory with the domain name roika-co.local, a username with the name of Majid I've created, and a computer with IP address 192.168.199 is also joined to the Active Directory. Active Directory configuration and joining the computer to the Active Directory is out of the scope of this course. Let's first log out from the Active Directory and again log into the Active Directory. This is the computer which is joined to the Active Directory. The domain roika-co.local, and this is the IP address of the computer 192.168.199. I log out from the Active Directory and log in again with the username Majid and password which I've already configured into the Active Directory. To monitor the status of SRX integration with Active Directory, I use the command show services, user identification, and then Active Directory access, and then domain controller status. With extensive, we can see the details of the status. The output shows that SRX is connected with the Active Directory correctly. Again, with the command show services, user identification, and then authentication table and authentication source and Active Directory, I can see which username with which IP address is logged into the Active Directory. As mentioned earlier, these information are retrieved from Active Directory event log database. As you can see, the computer with the IP address of 192.168.199 is connected to the username Majid. You can also retrieve user information from the IP address with the command show service user identification authentication table, and then IP address of, for example, 192.168.199. As you can see, this IP address is connected to the username Majid. It also shows the latest access of user to the Active Directory.